Something about Claire's pleading face made me want to listen to what she had to say. I looked at DeSilvio's face, still shifting like a flickering video image, and I could see not only concern for the contents of the stone bowl, but also looks of genuine worry directed at Claire. I took my hands gently off the stone basin full of swirling fluid, and Claire embraced me. I shoved her off of me roughly, and looked at her straight in her innocent, confused eyes, and said one word. Explain. The words came tumbling out of Claire's mouth so fast I could hardly keep up. But she explained that DeSilvio was some sort of being who needed help in order to survive. I didn't get everything she said, but I understood that she claimed DeSilvio was some sort of traveler who walked through dimensional planes, whatever that meant. I recoiled as she said that he prolonged his life by consuming the life essence of others. Although many of his fellow travelers simply murdered the people they encountered and stole their life essence by murder and theft, DeSilvio had found a way to gather what he needed by mixing the blood of a number of people and adding certain rare elements. I put my hand up. I had heard enough. I was about to ask why I should ever believe all of this, when, as if she anticipated my question, she put up a hand and called out in a loud voice for Carl. I heard the doors open and Carl entered with a half-dozen large, muscular men. As Carl approached, Claire rushed to his side and tugged on the sleeve of his left arm. "Show her," she said, as her arm gestured towards me. Carl looked confused for a moment, and then rolled up his sleeve. I could see a white bandage wrapped around his elbow, as if he'd given blood. Carl motioned his arm towards the other men nearby, and they all revealed similar bandaging on one of their arms. "You see," DeSilvio said, "no one has to die." I noticed that his face looked tired, and the supernatural shifting quality seemed to be getting worse. He gestured towards the bowl with an expression that seemed to be asking my permission to approach it. I looked long and hard at his face. He looked exhausted, but I saw no indication of deception. I turned to face Claire. Her worried expression seemed to plead with me. Carl and the men with him seemed to genuinely care, but they didn't move toward me. I suppose they must have been afraid I'd stand up and spill over the basin of blood. I considered for a moment, and then decided to move out of the way. When I did, Claire helped me up and then hugged me tightly around the chest. This time I let her. "Thank you," she said in a tiny voice. Marion DeSilvio placed his hands on the basin, and as he did so, a rush of energy seemed to spread across the red fluid with a crackling, electrical sound. I looked at Claire, Carl, and the men standing behind him. All were staring at DeSilvio in anticipation. I looked back to the basin and saw him raising his hands in the air, chanting words that sounded utterly foreign, as if the human mouth were not capable of making such sounds. The finger-like tendrils of blood seemed to climb up into the air, like vermilion flowers up an invisible trellis. And then all at once, DeSilvio clapped his hands, and a red, ghostly, translucent aura seemed to flow directly out of the liquid, and the rising red fingers of bloody fluid into the air, and then into DeSilvio's mouth, which was gaping wide. There was complete silence for an instant, and then a tremendously loud thunderclap rumbled through the air, and me, Claire, Carl, and even the muscular men were all knocked off our feet onto the floor. I shook my head, and when I looked again at DeSilvio, I was astonished. The flickering quality to his face was gone, and he seemed slightly younger than I had seen him before. He took a deep breath and opened his eyes, and then an enormous smile spread across his face. He dashed over to Claire and lifted her off the ground as she squealed with delight. And then Carl and his entourage surrounded DeSilvio with cheers and hollers and slaps on his back. And then the crowd of men parted, and DeSilvio and Claire looked at me. Claire's face was beaming with delight, and I saw tears brimming up in DeSilvio's eyes over a poignant smile. "We can never thank you enough," she said, as she put her delicate, pale hand in mine. I don't know when I started crying, but before I knew it, hot tears were streaming down my face, and we were all laughing and smiling and crying, and I knew that this was a day I would never forget. And And so, here I am, recording this into my little phone. I'm sure the quality isn't everything I'd hoped for, but I want to get it down fresh before I forgot some of the amazing details of the day. I appreciate your listening, but this isn't the end of my story. I would soon find that my adventures with Claire and Marion and Carl and the rest of the odd, spectacular bunch who would soon become my friends had just begun.